in some cases, primarily Western academics and journalists have tried to redefine parks and protected areas as privileged, colonial, imperialistic, archaic ideologies of so-called fortress conservation. And some have advocated returning ownership of Chitwan National Park, for instance, and other protected areas to the local people. Now, this ties into the land back movement in the US, which would propose at its extreme that our national parks be returned to Native American tribes. And it was the subject of a cover story of The Atlantic last year, you might be aware of. There's no question that all these indigenous people need attention, dignity, and support, and then they should be drawn into the management of protected areas, and that their indigenous knowledge has been overlooked. I took 2 bio courses with Schultes and was way into ethnobotany myself. But why is it, I might ask, that academics presume, or at least in some cases, that relatively pristine, biodiverse, high-value protected areas should carry the burden of solving social issues? In the case of Chitwan Park, this narrative tends to conflate poor squatters from outside the area with indigenous people. But most local residents and Nepalese realize that if hypothetically the park could be turned over to them, the first thing they would do would be to sell it. And there are many buyers who are waiting. One of the founders of Nepal's protected area system told me that Western academics and journalists claiming to speak on behalf of indigenous rights are falling right into the hands of corporate interests that would love to develop and commercialize Chitwan. And I didn't really foresee the extent to which international agencies are trying to shoehorn the absolute minimum of conservation objectives into far bigger agendas of income generation, poverty alleviation, infrastructure development, geohazard mitigation, social justice, and climate change adaptation. I might suggest that the activism that is centered on environmental justice has become co-opted by what is really social justice. I mention this because if we are to attempt to achieve half-Earth conservation objectives within our grandchildren's lifetimes, we will have to collectively re-envision and redefine who we are relative to nature. We'll have to draw clear boundaries and establish clear goals that recharacterize the wild parts of our planet as having value for all of us moving forward, rather than simply reacting to historical and special interest grievances and to corporate interests as well. It increasingly appears to me, at least, that all of us on Lifeboat Earth are paddling furiously in different directions. Now, I'm not anti-human, but considering the overwhelming success of our species, with now 8 billion of us, is it too much to ask that we protect at least half of the wildly biodiverse but threatened planet we live on?